Hi everyone, my name is Kimberly and welcome to Tuesday's Transformational Tip. Today I wanted to talk about signs of ascension. Since it is the 20th of December and it is right before the 21st of December, which is us moving into the Aquarian age, and no, I'm not an astrologer and I don't know much about that at all. It just brought up to me this whole subject of what is going on, I've heard people, I've heard fear come up in people saying, oh, are we going to go to a new place where almost like the ideas, the biblical ideas, it pulls up a lot of fear if we don't understand it. I don't see it like anything to be afraid of or anything like that. I think that we've been going through this for a very long time, and I think it's all relative. There is no objective reality. There's only a subjective reality. It means there's only your reality. And in your reality, over the last decade and even longer, there has been this shift slowly happening. And it has to happen that way because we would just disappear if it all happened in one shot. We are letting go of the things we don't need anymore, and we are realizing our true potential that's always been there. So in taking away, which is what I've been talking about in these videos for a long time, the taking away of what's taking up space inside us that is not really who we are. We're making space for whatever is there and is who we really are to bubble up and show itself. And so when people say you have everything you need, we do have everything we need. It's all there. We just need to take things out to make space for it, and then it starts to expand and take over all of those spots. I'm just going to describe it like that. I think you know what I'm trying to say. And so in our lives, if you've been on this whole transformational journey, this spiritual journey, this journey to ascension, there's a lot of different ways we can name it depending on how we look at it. There are so many different signs to show us that we are on that journey. Think about our own subjective reality and think about things that used to be in it that are no longer in it. That's one of the ways to know and to see. That's proof of that subjective reality that we are moving into, that new earth that we've heard people talking about. And one of the signs is just think about people that we vibed with before that may have been ultimately not going to be in our new world, our highest potential world, us in our highest potential, but they were useful at a time. Yes, it was vibing with the limited version of us, but that was also very necessary to show us the unlimited version of us. So those people, you may have noticed, are not there anymore. They've either faded out, we took them out, there was some kind of something that happened and everyone went their own way, or there's just a disinterest in that person or whatever was going on, whatever the relationship was about. That's one of the signs of the ascension process. The other sign another sign is health. Have you noticed that there have been challenges that popped up in your physical that made you want to dig into what is connected to that in the mind, in the emotions? And so our body, when there's something wrong with our body or our health, it does pull up a lot of different emotions. And so we want to work through that and figure it out. And so one of the big things that's popped up for a lot of people, and for me, most certainly, definitely, one of the biggest ones for me have been these little things on my health that there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. But it's there nonetheless, so I work on it. And getting to the bottom of some of these things has been really interesting. That's why I think when we work on say health challenges or abundance challenges, it's really important to do a total body workout, so to speak, because I've learned that they're not always in their own category. Like some limitations in one category give results in a different category. Which brings me to think about the program that I'm creating right now. It's kind of like a total emotional dive into each category so that there's more of a holistic lifting, a holistic frequency raise, because they're all interconnected. Body doesn't just mean body, and abundance or fitness or any category is not on its own. They're all interconnected. That's what I've learned in all of this work. Another thing that you may have noticed in this is a lot of limitations start to pop up. All of a sudden, every almost like hidden craving that we have or indifference to anything in our lives in any category starts to pop up. I've heard people say, oh, I don't think about that at all. And that's a really big neon flashing sign of indifference, which means it's on the other extreme of craving something. So we see through this whole ascension path to spirituality, which everyone is talking about right now, that has been a very big player. And it's the desires are there, or the indifference are there, the extremes to show us where the limitations are hiding. All of those little things that we've believed about the world, about ourselves, about our possibilities are starting to show up bigger and bigger. They have been showing up more and more and more. And if you've been on this journey like me for over 10 years now, a lot of the base of that was worked out right before 2012, whatever that meant. But the bulk of it for me happened right before like 2010. Yeah, 2010 and onward, the big bulk of all of that stuff started coming up. But I will say that in the last 2 months, there has been huge shifting in my own subjective reality. One of the other things that you may have noticed is that there have been a lot of things hiding, these foundational, fundamental factors of your world that have been taken up, shaken off, and shown to you. Like something that you just, not even, I mean, some things are on the frills of our awareness, but wow, some things are really deeply hidden. Wouldn't you agree? And in the last 2 months, I have had personally, and I've heard this from other people, other energy healers, saying that there has been this revealing of all of these really fundamental beliefs that we have in our lives, like these really hidden subconscious patterns for protection. And I'm guessing we don't need that protection anymore. We are more able to be vulnerable in our own lives and in our relationships and in whatever we're talking about, that we don't really need that for protection anymore. So things that we were using as protection for ourselves up until this point are falling down around us. And I believe as above, so below. And we're seeing that everywhere in the world right now, that there is a falling down and an awareness of what something has been for us, but it is not that. And now it's so obvious now that, oh my gosh, I was using that to hold on to give me this feeling of security, when really it was not at all what I thought it was. And so that's a sign when things are falling down around us like that, like people we thought were a certain way that are really not, or things that we thought were a certain way that are really not. This is not, in the moment, I guess it feels challenging. It is, and it can be very painful. For me also, it has been very painful, but going through it, I always have this outlook that this is useful And it is ultimately it's a cleanse we're going through. It's just a cleanse we're all going through, and the world is going through the same cleanse right now. So it's very, very, very interesting. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which is really, really interesting, and this is very subtle what I'm going to talk about right now, and that is things that we thought were the way we thought things might feel when we got into a certain position are not actually how they feel. It's kind of the opposite. For example, a way we feel about how it will feel to feel abundant or powerful, and the things that we will do with that or have because of that or be because of that. Stepping into those states before anything actually shifts in the outer world. We kind of have this idea of it's going to be like that, it's going to look like that, and then when we actually step into it, we realize that it's not like that at all. It doesn't feel like that at all. It actually feels almost the opposite. But the feeling of power is there. It's just what we do with it feels just so different. Almost like, as an example, I would say, a lot of people think that power is this, when actually when you get into a state of power, it's very much like this. Kind of that kind of vibe. That's one of the big things that I've noticed. The way that I thought it would be before all of this started and the way it is now is totally different than what I was thinking. And I think a lot of you are probably noticing the same thing. I'm sure you are. One of the other things that you may have noticed, and this happens to me quite often, is like these gratitude attacks. You know how you have like an anxiety attack of some sort or a panic attack? I used to have those, and it's very similar. It just comes out of nowhere. It just comes out of nowhere, and it just takes me over. This gratitude and this love and this expanded feeling of possibility. I get these all the time, and I think that it comes from taking out a lot of limitations. And what's around limitations? There's a lot of fear around limitations. There's a lot of stuck energy around limitations. And so when we take those out of our energetics, there's just that much more space for whatever else is underneath, and that's natural for us. That just starts to bubble up. And yes, there is, when we start training our body to experience certain emotions, especially when we get into a rhythm of doing a meditation every day, and that is, we are building new circuits in our mind, in our brains for those emotions to be flooded into our body, then our body starts to get used to those chemicals, and then we're constantly doing that every day. And so what that does is that starts to program our body. Now, when the cells start to split, so to speak, that's what they're asking for. They're asking for that gratitude chemical that they got every other day before. And so Dr. Joe Dispenza has a lot to say about that, and it's really, really interesting. And also the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? I have the book and the movie, and it's really, really great. And so I think that the more that we're on this journey, and the more digging we do, and the more releasing we do, and the more allowing we do, we start to really get this momentum of gratitude and expansiveness and love. And it's really, really so interesting, and it is so fun. The other thing I wanted to talk about that's kind of hooked up with that is just our idea of what is possible just starts to open up. Like, you will start having ideas of what is possible for you that you never thought was possible before. And it comes spontaneously, like these gratitude attacks I'm talking about. So that's really, really fun. It's a really fun part of it. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the connectedness that we feel. And yes, excuse me, I generally talk to empaths and people who are into transformation and very highly sensitive people. And so I said this before, as empaths, we are tuned in, turned on. But that, as we go through this journey, really, really starts to rise a lot. We become very, very connected. And it's interesting a lot of things are interesting right now. It's really interesting about the connectedness. Thinking that connectedness only means one thing in one area, like this energy of this unlimited power, the field, connectedness to the field, to this expansive feeling. But notice as we go through this, my dog is talking. Notice as we go through this that there is such an intuition and a connectedness to very specific things in my life, at least. Very specific intuitive hits on all kinds of different things that I didn't think beforehand were important enough or spiritual enough. I guess, see, part of that limiting belief, getting intuition on so many different things, not just about the path and growth, not just about relationships and connections, but really intuitive hits on really specific things like stocks, for example. Like just the expansiveness of what it means to be intuitive. And if you hear this, think about what I'm saying right now. A lot of people like to put boundaries on where we can be intuitive and what we can manifest in that intuition or what we can act on. But it is open. Everything in our awareness is game for what our intuition can interact with. It's all there. If it's in our awareness, then it's included. So there's no limit or barrier or hands-off place that we can have these intuitions on. It's so subtle. I'm just grasping all of it right now to kind of translate it. There's no limit to what we can access. That's the point. And if you hear that there are not. There are not. Either that person has some kind of indifference to it or some kind of blocker still to that. Doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's just in their reality, that's what it is. And we're all making our own reality. Reality is subjective, like I said before. And so whatever is open in your reality is open in your reality. So just think about that. Think about the potential in that. Think about the magic in that. Just think about it. The other thing that, there's a lot of things, right? The other thing that I was thinking about yesterday is, and I always do these activities or these experiments before I go to bed. I love experimenting. I always go to bed a little bit earlier so I can experiment with mind control and I can experiment with meditations. That's how I've created a lot of the meditations and little and techniques that I do in my meditation courses to access certain parts of us. I do it all before I go to sleep. And so last night I was going through the scene of the future, my future self. What is possible for my future self? What is there? What I see for myself. And I realized very quickly that the biggest version of what, please listen to me right now, this is so important. The biggest version of what I could see for myself was actually limiting the energy that I had in me. I was thinking to myself, okay, and I always do this with my energy when I'm in my vision for the future, when I'm infusing that future vision. I always stand in it, in my vision, and I open up my energy because that really, really helps. And see how I fit in the vision. And I was feeling like, stuck. I was feeling small. And so what I did was I closed out the vision completely, the visualization, and I just went with the energetics. And so I didn't see anything. I just went with the energetics of standing in an empty space in my visualization. I'm standing in an empty space. And I opened up my energy and see how that feels. And all of a sudden my energies just went outward. So sometimes our visualizations of what we think is possible are really limiting us to what is really there. And this is hard to wrap our minds around because we can't see, we can't imagine. There are always things to work on. This is a work in progress. This path is never ending, which is why it's so fun. I wake up in the morning thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen today? Woo! What am I going to think about today? What am I going to come up with today? What am I going to realize today? And it's so interesting. So if you're on this path, you will be realizing that what you have set for yourself and the biggest version that you could possibly see for yourself is probably limited. It's probably too limited for the energies, yes, that are coming in, that are helping us evolve. And so we will notice these things. We start becoming aware of, wow, okay, we're really, really limiting ourselves. And so that starts to become really, really obvious, especially lately. Like I said, I'm not into astrology. I don't know what is going on with that, but I can feel that there's definitely something speeding up. In my own personal journey, it's been speeding up. Every day I'm having an aha epiphany, breaking through a limiting belief, sometimes twice a day. It is very intense, but the other thing that you may have noticed, if you're on this ascension journey, and not that you're really getting somewhere, but that things are really starting to move and we are creating our own new earth, so to speak, is the joy and excitement that we find in the dig of what it is we're going to find for ourselves, like the digging into the limiting beliefs and the digging into the old us, what we thought was us, the way our reality was constructed kind of for us, and then we were just living it out blindly, which is the 95% of what they talk about. We're living out our patterns, the program, and the 5% is conscious awareness, consciously living out. And so that 5% starts to get bigger. And so we're starting to enjoy the process of the dig and the excavation of all of the old limiting patterns. I am really enjoying this. It is getting really fun. And before, I would say the beginning of the journey, it was more like very specific emotions into my confidence, my self-worth. And then it got into more blanket themes of like self-worth itself. And then there are strings of where that came from. And now it's moving into foundational theories, I would say, about how I was living my life. So it's getting really interesting, the stages of uncovering all of those limitations and moving into our new earth. So that is what I can think of for now. If I think about anything else, you're going to see that this video is snippets added together, because I wanted to add everything that I can think of through this whole day of all the changes that we're going through. And I think it's really important for people that are on the more beginning part of this journey to know that there's weird stuff that happens, and there's things that can bring up kind of fear if we don't really know about it. I know when I was starting out on my journey, I was confused all the time. I was constantly searching. I had fear. I didn't know what was going on. And there was not a lot of people talking about it at that time. Of course, we didn't have the technology we have right now and the platforms we have right now to share all of this. And it's so wonderful that we do, because we can all just share. And I'm learning, I'm finding groups and communities of people that are sharing. It's so refreshing and it's so wonderful, and it just makes us feel not alone. Like, I don't feel alone anymore. I don't know about you. So I think it's really, really wonderful. And I think that is another sign of the ascension process and moving into our own new earth, as we start connecting and realizing that there are a lot of people like us In the beginning, we feel really alone. We feel like we don't have any community. We feel like we're weirdos, essentially. Like we're going through this on our own. Why is it nobody else is talking about this? I feel so different. I just almost want to go home, but I don't know where home is. That feeling of loneliness, I know I had that for sure. And now I don't have it as much. Adjusting to the whole transformation, adjusting to what needed to happen in order for me to get to where I am. And I don't know about you, but this has really served me in the darker times of going through the limitations. Right before the limitations revealed, I hit a wall on something. And what I've noticed is looking at where I have come from, which has been great. But of course, we're always growing and we're always uncovering. So I look at it like, wow, this is a perfect springboard into a more unlimited me. I don't want to say an unlimited me because I don't even know how far this path goes from where I am right now. A more unlimited me, a more unlimited you. The platform where you are right now is a perfect springboard. So if you're in a place where things are uncomfortable, they're not working out, you don't understand, you're confused, I thought it was supposed to be like this, I need more of this. Just work through what that is. Realize that this is really a great springboard for the more unlimited version of you. This is exactly what you need. You need to know what you really want in order to start uncovering what's holding you back in order to get what you want. And so there's stages to it, and they're all really important. And the perspective comes from on the other side, of course, but realizing that's a perfect springboard. So if you're in a place where something's not working, you are calling out that desire to understand why it's not working. Look at why it's not working. Look at every component of it emotionally, everything in your feelings, everything associated with that. And then calling on that desire for more, realizing what's there, and then moving into what's more naturally through the process by default of just dealing with all of that limitation. So I think that covers it for Tuesday's transformational tip. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have any questions of any sort, always info@kimberlypady.com. Love talking to everyone and just connecting. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Let's see what happens tomorrow on the 21st. I am doing meditation with my family. It's great to spend time thinking about harmony in our lives, because that's ultimately what we are in our unlimited self. It's a place of harmony. It's a place of full personal power. It's a place of trust. It's a place of love. And so that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. What will you be doing? Talk to you next week. Bye.